so I was going to say mompreneur. Oh my goodness. Mompostor syndrome. Let me start over. We are going to talk about mompostor syndrome today. And I have my good friend Debbie with me. And this is going to be such a good topic. So make sure you stay through this whole thing. And we're going to touch on many things that I feel like moms deal with. And we're going to give some action steps that they can take to be able to overcome some of the feelings that they have, some of the things that they're dealing with. So let's introduce ourselves. I'm Coach Pamsky, and I work with women who are coming out of dysfunctional homes and situations, and I give them the tools and the things that they need to be able to rise up out of that pit of inner chaos. So I do a lot of talking on setting healthy boundaries, how to trust again, forgiveness, overcoming imposter syndrome and low self worth, and so much more. So I am so glad to join you here. And Debbie, you introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Debbie Dowling-Wahba, and I help women who are overwhelmed with stress and anxiety, and I get them back to living the life that they want to live and are happy to live because I give them the tools, tips, tricks, and everything to overcome the whelm and ditch the stress and anxiety. So,
Yes. That's so good. Ditch the stress. I'm sure we're going to be talking about that today.
oh, yeah.
So I was super excited about this because being a mom myself, now my children are now grown and they're starting to have their own children. So now I'm grandma. But even so, my heart is for moms because I know the stress that we go through as we're raising our children and some of the mindsets that we have and the challenges. So some of what we're going to talk about is those challenges and how does mompostor syndrome set in with moms. And so, one of the first things I want to talk about, we're going to go through some of the profiles of a mom. And Debbie, you tell me after each one, can you relate? So, and I'm sure you can because I know I can. So,
Yeah.
the first one is the perfectionist mom, the mom who tries to be perfect, tries to have everything in its place. Not saying that they actually have it all in its place, but that's their goal. They're always trying to have everything be perfect. Be the perfect mom. The house look perfect. Be the perfect wife. Making sure that the kids have absolutely everything they need and then some. And so and the reason they do this is because they care about what people think about them and what people see. So they try to keep that personification of being perfect. Now, before you say anything, Debbie, I just got to say, I grew up in a home where my mom was a perfectionist for sure. And so things had to be a certain way. And if they weren't, watch out. And so when I grew up and had my own house, what do you think I did? Oh, yeah. That pressure of it needs to be perfect, especially if she was coming to my house. And so I would stress out and worry. Now, I had it in an in-care daycare, a licensed daycare in my home. And so people were coming and going every day from my home. And that was the other thing was I needed those parents to believe that I had it all together and that everything was perfect. And guess what? It wasn't. It wasn't, and it was so stressful. So, what about you, Debbie? Can you relate to this one?
Yes. And I mean, I grew up in an apartment in New York, and I mean, my mom kept it clean, but with four people living in a little two-bedroom apartment, it did tend to get cluttered, but it was clean. And for me, I always wanted to have that perfect house. It seemed like everything was in perfect order. But when I had five kids, and then four of them were six and ranging down to a newborn, it was kind of hard to hold up to that standard, and it sent me into a funk for a while. And then I just realized, what's more important, the dishes in the sink or that my children are getting the attention and giving them those memories in my time, because guess what? You don't get that time back, and they're only little for so long. So I had to let go of I did have a little bit of OCD, and I was one of those that would vacuum the carpet, and I had to have the perfect lines. Like, I would lift the vacuum up and it would have to have the perfect lines. I had to let it go because I was driving myself crazy, and I had to realize that what was more important, the lines in the carpet or the memories I was making with my children.
Oh, that is so true, so good too. So if you're watching this live, please make sure that you leave comments, ask questions, and we will get back to you and make sure that we answer those questions. It's so
Yeah.
good to have you here. All right, so that was really good. Here's the next one. This is the guilty mom. This is the mom who feels like she's always second guessing everything she does. And she feels like she's responsible for everyone's problems. If she can't fix it, then she feels guilty. If her kids don't seem happy, well, it's on her. It's it This one is hard because that guilt can weigh you down and turn into shame. And when we walk around with that shame, it's like this heavy weighted blanket on us all the time, and it's hard for us to have any joy when shame is taking place and being a part of our everyday life. But for a mom, it's hard because she sees her children and she's like, I want them to be happy, and they don't seem happy. Well, it may not have anything to do with her, but in her mind, it does, because in her mind, she needs to fix the problems. She needs to make everybody okay. She needs to meet those expectations that she has on herself and that she feels other people have on her. And this is one that I definitely had because I felt so much guilt not having it. There were times where maybe we were struggling a little bit financially, and I felt guilty because I couldn't get my kids the things that they wanted. They always had everything they needed, but there were things I couldn't give them, and I felt guilty. And oh my goodness, what are their friends going to think of them because they don't have the most popular device or game system or whatever it is. And it was a lot of stress on me. And this is one that I really definitely feel like this is a mindset thing. Like, you really have to work on what is going on inside your mind to help with those guilty feelings and those feelings of shame. So, Debbie, what about this one? Can you relate to this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was always worried about what other moms might think, especially the ones that seem to have it all together. And, you know, a lot through my journey of finding myself, I realized that they not necessarily had it together, but that's what they portrayed to the world. And it goes back to, even all on social media, you see these people with their perfect life, and that's really not what's going on. So I had to learn and just say, you know what? It's okay. You're doing the best job that you can do, and accepting that it was the best job that I could do. Now, were there times I thought I could do better? Absolutely. But that being said, I did the best I could with what I had, and I'm pretty darn proud of myself.
Yes, yes. I'm thinking about whenever I was raising my kids, that comparing to other moms was huge. Because of the background that I have, I always felt like I was a failure as a mom, that I wasn't doing a good enough job, that I could do more. Why can't I be like these other moms? And I did think that they were perfect, that they had it all together, that their families were great. Their families, extended families, would get together for the holidays,
Mhm.
and I didn't have that. And I kept comparing myself to them. And when I finally got to the point where I realized, Pam, you don't have to be them. Can you still see me, Debbie?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have to be them, that God made me different, and I don't have to fit the mold, that, I can just be me and let my hair down and relax. And here's the deal. When I started working on my mindset with feeling guilty all the time, the beautiful thing that I discovered was is that I have way more peace being able to just be who I'm created to be as a mom, as a wife, as
Mhm.
an entrepreneur. I don't have to be like everybody else. And as I allowed myself, because this is something that you have to do, is allow yourself, give yourself permission to be able to be who you were created to be, the stress started reducing. I
Mhm.
began to have more joy. I began to treat my family differently with a lot more fun and lightheartedness. And it changed everything. So if you feel guilty, one of the things I'm going to say is take a deep look into what is causing that guilt. And if you're comparing yourself to other people, I'm going to say stop, because you deserve to have peace and you deserve to have joy, and your family is going to thank you for it.
Absolutely.
So, Debbie, our third one is the overwhelmed mom.
Mm.
Uh oh. Yes, I just have to say this, what mom doesn't feel overwhelmed? I mean, seriously, there we wear so many hats, and when we look at our kids and them being involved in the different sports and activities and things they need at school, plus our own stuff, plus what our mates need, and then we have these pets, there's just a lot for a mom to do. And one of the things that I've noticed, and tell me if you notice this too, one of the things I noticed is it seems like husband and wives are starting to balance things out at home better, so that they're both taking some responsibility for the home, where I feel like it used to be that the mom was responsible for it all. And then I think there's been this transition, because I know several husbands that they're the ones that cooks the meal, they do the laundry. And in the beginning, I remember thinking that's just so odd to me, because my era of growing up, it was mom did
Oh,
everything.
mhm.
Dad went and provided, mom did everything. And even if mom had a job, she still did all the house stuff.
Right.
And I'm beginning to see that that's changing a little bit. But for you as a single mom, you don't have that luxury of having somebody else. Now your children are a little bit older and hopefully they're doing their part. But it's been interesting to see. And that's one of the things I wanted to bring up as a mom is when your children are small, oh, the feeling overwhelmed is a everyday feeling, I feel like. I struggled with that. I did learn to start balancing things out by, again, recognizing who I am and that my house may not be organized like somebody else's, or that I may do things differently. But I tried to find ways to reduce that
Mhm.
overwhelmed feeling, and a lot of it was my expectations, but some of it was just our day to day, all the things we have to do. And it's one of the reasons why I like my procrastination challenge, is because I teach people how to get things done without being stressed out and overwhelmed. But this is something that I feel like all moms can relate to. And there are things that you can do to help with it. So Debbie, what would you say, first of all, how do you relate to this one, and how do you think what could help moms be able to reduce the overwhelmed feeling?
Well, so for me, my husband worked long hours, so his helping with the house or the kids or whatever was pretty much non-existent.
Mhm.
And he only had 1 day off and, he wanted to rest and stuff. So, I mean, he did what he could do, but at the end of the day, I was responsible for the house and the kids and everything that went on and the activities and, just everything from soup to nuts. I mean, I was doing 4 loads of laundry a day just to keep up, and it just got so overwhelming, and I didn't have anybody that I could rely on to help me or to just be around and give me that little break. So the one thing that I've learned as my kids have gotten older and I'm able to do more and not have to be over them is taking the time for myself and just doing things that I enjoy. And it took me a long time because I had the guilt of, well, if I'm doing something for myself, I'm not doing anything for them. And that's not true because by me doing things for myself, it's actually making me a happier person. So instead of just flying off the handle for something so minute that typically wouldn't bother me, but because I was so stressed and overwhelmed, just the littlest things could set me off. So by taking that time and filling my cup, it helped me to be a better mom and be more present and just enjoy the moment more rather than being worried about, okay, what am I not doing?
I love that. And what I want to say to that, that is so, so true. Self care is so incredibly important.
Yes.
I know that when your children are small, you feel like you never have time for yourself. But the truth is that you have to create that time. You
Yeah.
have the same 24 hours as everybody else. And so you have to create that time. But what often happens is we feel like self care is selfish. If we're taking care of ourselves, well, then we're neglecting our family. No, no, no. If you are taking some steps to do that self care, whether it's going off and reading a book or some self development, you're learning some things about yourself, and maybe you're taking time out to go to a coach, or you take some time out just to go shopping. Those things gives you time to be able to reflect, to get away, and guess what? You're gonna be such a better person because you're taking care of you. You feel better, everybody else feels better. We all know the expression, "If mama's happy, everybody's
Everybody's
happy."
happy. Yeah, and
Right.
for me, one of the things, and I still do it to this day, is I would go and hide in my closet because it was the one place that I could go and catch my breath. And for whatever reason, no matter how many times I did it, my kids would never think to look in my closet. So I would sit in my closet and just breathe. And, in that silence is when I would get my, recharged a little so that I could go back out and just, be more, more cheerful and okay. And say to myself, I got this. I got this.
Oh, so true, but Debbie, every time talking about going into the closet, it makes me laugh because I think about, oh my goodness, if I tried to sit in my closet, yeah, I would look like a sandwich for sure. And I don't know that I could move to get my hand back up to the handle to get the door open. So being in my closet is probably not the place for me to have some self-care. I need to get out in nature or go do something because I don't want to be stuck in my closet.
Well, here's the thing, when I had all the kids and I was home and I couldn't leave them because they were so little, so I did go in the closet and I cleared just a little spot and I had a pillow and a blanket in there and I mean, I would lean up against the pile of clothes or whatever was there, but it was just my moment and I would be basically crawled in a ball, but it was just my moment to breathe.
You must have had a walk-in closet.
I still do have a walk-in
Yeah,
closet.
see, I don't.
Well,
That's what I mean.
but
If
then
I got in my closet, I would disappear because, like, there's just no
Well, my
room.
closet wasn't always so big, but, this one happens to be big, so I keep a pillow and a blanket, and I'll just go lay down on the floor in there.
That's
So,
so awesome. I love that.
I
I love
barely fit, but
that.
it's a good place for me to just go because and it's almost like the clothing is like a sound barrier, so at the same time as I'm in there breathing, I'm also not hearing a lot of stuff because
Oh my
it's almost
goodness,
like being
and
in a padded room.
that is a really good point. There are times when moms need to get somewhere where they can just have silence and not hear the crying, not hear the mom, 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 or the bickering between the kids or the neediness, and just be able to get away, breathe, change your thinking, just bring in the goodness of life and allow ourselves to have that time, because when you can hear all of that, I know for myself, if I could hear my kids bickering or upset or whatever it is, and I'm not talking about times when they really really need you. I'm talking
Yeah.
about times when you just need a break because you can feel that edginess rising
Rising
and
up.
rising, and you're becoming more irritated and more
Mhm.
irritated, and like that you're gonna blow. That's the time to go. And don't go for the bathroom, because we all know that when you're a mom and you've got kids and you're in the bathroom, they're beating on the door.
It's a
They're,
magnet.
"Mom, mom." The bathroom is not the place to go because you're not gonna get any peace there, so you might have to go somewhere else, and if you just need to put your earbuds in for a little bit, whatever you need to do to regroup, get that peace, and move on.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Well, and
yes.
when I would hear mom too many times, I would answer with, "She just left." And they were so little, but they would be like, "No, we're talking to you. What do you mean she just left?" So,
Oh, that's so funny. Alright, our next one is the accomplished mom. Now, this is the profile of mom probably is already accomplished, but she needs everyone to see her as being accomplished.
mhm,
This is definitely the profile where really caring about what people are going to see is important. And to her, if she's not accomplished, what's the opposite of that? Failure. And so she feels like a failure when she's not accomplishing. But here's the thing, what I think what's really important here is, where's your gauge? What are you gauging? How are you identifying whether or not you're accomplished? Because there are things that we're going to do that we might not be successful at. And they're the things that we figure out, maybe this isn't my cup of tea. Maybe this isn't the thing I should be doing. So instead, being able to say, okay, instead of beating yourself up and it becoming something, your identity, that you're not good enough or can't do enough or not accomplished enough, then you could say, all right, you know what, I don't have to accomplish everything, and it's okay. So, Debbie, I'm going to pass it over to you.
yeah, so and that's the whole thing is we have to take and view what are we trying to accomplish? And if we are just doing the simple things and accomplishing what we need to accomplish, then pat yourself on the back because you got it done. And I had friends that I was always being compared to because, oh, their house is always so immaculate and blah blah blah. And one day I showed up unannounced and their house did not look like what it looks like when you normally go over. So I secretly took pictures and I was like, you see, their house looks the way that they want to portray to you when you come over. That's not how it looks all the time. So, and for me, it kind of was a validation because, I had the misconception that their houses were always perfect. But when you
Mhm.
show up unannounced and that you get to see the real story, and that's why I say, people may appear on the outside like everything is so perfect and everything is so wonderful, but it isn't always that way. And they always let you see what they want you to see and not what's really going on.
Oh, so true. So first, I need to pause here a second because I can't help it. This is like, I don't know if you noticed what happened.
Yes.
So anytime that you're going to do a really good podcast, interview, live, you're going to sometimes have struggles. Debbie, do you have something on? Because I'm double hearing myself.
No.
Okay, that's so weird. Okay, anyway, sometimes when you're doing a live, a podcast, or something that's going to be really good, things will try to stop you. For instance, we knew this was gonna be a really good live, and we were having technical problems trying to hear ourselves, or me, be heard, and we figured out what the problem was, but it took us a good hour to figure that out. Well, then sitting here is my ring light, and I'm not touching a thing, and it turns as bright like the sun as it could get. And it's like, "Whoa, what just happened?" So know that when you're going to have a really good segment, sometimes things will go bonkers and crazy. You stay cool. You just allow yourself that, "Hey, these things are gonna happen," and you push through them and you keep going because your message is more important and really good, and you just have to work through those weird technical things that happen.
Yes, for sure.
Oh my goodness. All right. So another one is the single mom. So the single mom might feel they have to work even harder to prove their worth because they're single. They don't have that other person, their mom, their dad, and they're trying to do it all, and they feel like they're responsible for and in a sense they are responsible for everything because they don't have that other person to pick up the lack or share in the responsibilities. And when you said about self-care, this is definitely, and you understand this,
Mhm.
it's definitely hard for single moms because if they wanna practice self-care, they have to get a babysitter, their mom, or, someone to come in for them so that they can take that time. Now when the kids get a little bit older, it might not be as hard, but then the older they get, the more responsibilities or the more things that they get involved in, so then it can still be a challenge, but, yeah, it definitely you can see where single moms want to have that view that they can handle it all.
Yeah,
They're the ones that at night, they're crying because they're exhausted,
yeah.
and I was a single mom for some time, and it's not easy.
It's not. And, for me, a lot of times I would find my self-care time when my boys were on the soccer field. I would bring a book with me and I would read because I what was I gonna do for 3 hours? And a couple of times I even took myself out to dinner and I had a nice quiet dinner by myself. But that was also later on when I finally figured out that the one thing that was missing from the equation was myself, and I needed to have those moments of just sitting in the quiet without the mom, 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 mom,
Mhm.
mom, mom, and okay, I have this responsibility, I have that responsibility. Is the laundry done? The dinner's cooked. The food is made. The grocery shopping's done. Is this one at their activity on time? Is that one at their activity on time? All the planning and preparation that goes into it. So most of the time when we were at soccer practice, if my boys weren't actually practicing, they were out kicking the ball with their friends waiting for their practice time. So I would sit in my car, read a book, listen to something. Here comes my assistant right across the screen. I can't with him.
I know.
It never fails.
Mhm.
But yeah, so you have to find those times. And once we get home, it was okay, making sure everybody ate. So the only time that I could really find for myself was sometimes sitting in my car and reading. And I wasn't being rude to the other parents. It was just I needed that downtime.
Yeah. When my kids were small, one of the things that I liked, and we'll talk about this a little here in a little bit, is that I loved taking my kids to the lake
Mhm.
because the lake had sand. We would put a blanket out. They would play in the sand. I would read a book. I could see them. They're fine, but they would play with each other, play in the water, and that was so relaxing for me because I'm out in nature. They're having fun. I don't have to feel like I have to occupy them and keep them busy. and I could actually read a book and enjoy my time. So I loved when we went to the lake. Now, the other thing that I really appreciated was in our church, um, we had a mom's day where we could bring our kids to the church and there would be teens, dads that would watch the children, so us moms could go get some time to ourselves, whether we went for a pedicure or we went out for lunch, whatever it was, and I
Mhm.
really appreciated that. So one of the things I wanna say is if you're a mom and your ch especially if your children are small and you're really struggling being able to find time for yourself, see if there's a church around you that provides that for you. A
Yeah.
mom's day out is usually what it's called, and I know it's a little hard because I didn't just leave my kids with anybody. Now,
Yeah.
this was a church that I knew the people, so maybe you need to get to know the people first so that you can trust them, but to be able to take them somewhere so that you can have your time is so important.
Absolutely. And I too was very, particular about who I would let my kids stay with. So it wasn't that easy. And I think there was some groups around here that did the whole mom night out thing, but at the time when I knew about them, my kids were so little I wouldn't go out because it was like 7 o'clock at night till like nine
Mhm.
o'clock, and no, you're going to bed. So
And that is true, yes, that is true. It definitely has to be a time that suits you, but
yeah.
yeah. So before we get into what we can do, I just wanna quickly say, what are some of the causes of Mompostor syndrome? One of them is pressure from society, definitely,
Mhm.
is something that will cause Mompostor syndrome because you're always concerned about what others think, what they're saying about you, things like that, and trying to keep up with all of the other moms. The other thing is comparison and judgment. Well, definitely every time you're comparing yourself to someone else. So, just a little cue here. One of the things that you can do if you are struggling with this is don't compare yourself to other people. And we can say that about all of the self care things that we talk about in self development things. Don't compare yourself to other people. I have someone right now. There's a woman, one of my clients. She's wearing a rubber band. This is week 3 for her. Week 1 was she wears the rubber band, and every time she compares herself to someone, she's to ping herself. And the first week was just to make her aware. The second week, when we got together, I asked her, "How'd you do?" She said, "Not so great." Like, I didn't realize how much I compare myself. Week 2, she did it again just to make her even more aware, and now week 3, she's to change that comparison thought and make it a truth instead of her truth. And it's been amazing, and it's really helping her to have that peace to be able to say, "Okay, you know what? I don't have to be like them. I'm not them." So
Right.
it's a great way to be able to help people recognize how often we compare ourselves to other people because we do it way more than what we recognize and it affects us. The other one is past traumas. Definitely, if you experience trauma in your life, you are going to probably have a more difficult time with Mompostor syndrome because you're going to have those unresolved feelings that haven't been dealt with, and they'll rise up at times and really cause stress and chaos in your life. And then the fourth one is lack of support. If you don't have people supporting you, we are not to be on this journey by ourselves. And so we need to make sure that we have people who can support us. So let's get into then what are some things that we can do that can help us work through this? I don't want to, I don't know that we can actually say overcome because we're human and we're going to have these feelings that come in. These feelings are not bad. they're going to come, and you need to accept yourself as a human. You need to say, I'm a human. I'm going to have these thoughts and feelings, but what I do with them is what's important. And if I just ignore them or stuff them, they're going to wait for me. They're going to keep coming back. Make sure you tell yourself it's okay to have these thoughts. It's okay to have these feelings. It's what you do with them that's important. And if you can have some tools and some things that you can do, guess what? That mom imposter, that those feelings of inadequacy will actually get better and better, and you'll be able to do something about them quicker and quicker. And that is what we want. It's not that we don't ever want to have the feelings and the thoughts, because they're going to come. It's what do we do with them, and can we do it a little bit quicker and a little bit quicker?
Yes.
Debbie, do you have anything you want to say to that?
Yeah, I just want to say that when you're going through these things and you're trying to figure out what it is that you want to address, it's okay to sit in that moment and feel the emotions and then ask yourself, is it really true?
Mhm.
Because I'm going to guarantee you that 99% of the time it's not true, but that's how you're perceiving yourself because of what you've heard from other people or what you see on the TV or what you see on social media. So you just have to sit there and ask yourself, is this really true, or am I just feeling inadequate because somebody else is telling me I'm inadequate? And that's not the case. You're doing it the best you can, and like I always say, I'm perfectly imperfect, and it's okay. So I do things to the best of my ability. And when you're asking yourself that question, if you feel truly in your heart that you've done the best that you can do, it really doesn't matter what everybody else thinks.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah, thinking about that, I used to, when my kids were growing up, I would say, "It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks." You
Right.
know, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. I had to learn that myself at 36 years old. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks,
Yes.
because I was so concerned about that, and it rolled me. I was the perfectionist. I tried to look good, be enough, and it was exhausting. And when I realized that I don't have to do that. It does not matter what other people think. They're going to think what they think anyway. So
Yes.
let it go. Like, let it go. And it was like, wow, so much better when I finally said, okay, you're right. I can let it go.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And once you let it go, it really it is freeing because then you're free to be you. You're
Yeah.
free to be your authentic self.
Yes.
And you're not living up to what somebody else is saying you should be. So it just makes it easier to uh, be yourself, and it relieves a lot of stress and a lot of pressure when you just are yourself.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Alrighty. So, some of what we want to talk about here is some tools, some steps that you can take to help you work through the Mompostor syndrome, so that you can have that sense of, I am good enough. I can do this. And when those tough times come, you'll know what you can use. So here's what I often say, Debbie, is that we often carry this tool pouch around with us like a carpenter does.
Yeah.
And it's wrapped around our waist, and we have these tools, and they don't really work. They're the tools we used as children, and as adults they don't work. And so I say, let's get a new set of tools. So let's put your old tools off to the side. Let me give you new tools, and as you begin to use the new tools, you'll have the tendency to go back to those old ones. But here's the deal, the new one's right here in your pocket. If you learn to use the new tool, guess what? You're not going to go for the old one, because you begin to realize that the new ones work. And so that's what we want to give you, is some new tools that you can use so that you can tame that inner chaos, so that you can feel good about the direction you're going in and feel like you really are growing. So here's one. First, acknowledge your feelings. I know. I know feelings can feel very overwhelming. And I know that it's very easy to stuff them. but I've said it many times. They're not going to go anywhere. If you think they're just going to go away because you stuff them, uh-uh, they are not going anywhere. They are waiting for you, and you may able push them down for a bit, but watch what happens the next time something happens that
Mm,
upsets you. All those emotions that you stuffed come welling back up. And guess what? It's not just the emotions that you feel in this circumstance, it's the emotions that you feel in the ones that you've been stuffing and what's going on. And I can guarantee that you're going to react instead of respond. If
mhm,
you work through your emotions, it helps you to be able to respond to your situations and not react. React means that you say things that later you regret. Your children spilled the milk, and oh my goodness, you would have thought the house was on fire. That's what happens. So, we need to acknowledge our feelings. This is what I'm feeling. Name them out. Get yourself a list. In Pamsky's Place, we have a whole long list of different emotions because we need to be able to name them. That way, it helps us acknowledge how we're really feeling, not just sad, bad, and mad, but hey, I'm disappointed. I feel like I've been disregarded. Those are words we don't usually use, but we need to because it helps us identify how we're really feeling. And then we can write it out because I'm big about writing things out. We can write out how it makes us feel, and what happens. And then I have other steps that you can take to be able to work through that. So Debbie, just in this one, because I know this is big for you too, what when acknowledging feelings, what advice can you give on that?
it's gonna be hard because, when the hardest person to face is ourselves,
Mm,
and admitting that we have our faults and admitting that we've made mistakes. But once we realize that and we sit in it and we allow to ourselves to go through those emotions and to work through what we may be feeling that's negative, it's definitely a space you wanna be in because then you are facing it and getting it out. And sometimes it might be you have to write it down to get it out. Whatever you have to do to get it out, but you want to get it out so that it doesn't fester and it doesn't create boiling. And I use it to the example of a tea kettle. If you keep burying your feelings, it's like a tea kettle that's bubbling and bubbling and bubbling and bubbling, but you keep trying to put it down, put it down, put it down. And once you do put it down, like you don't put them down, that tea kettle's going to whistle.
mm.
You want to avoid the whistle. And the only way to do that is to work through the emotions. And it's okay if you need to cry, if you need to scream, if you need to punch something. I mean, I don't know. However, you want to get those feelings out, you need to get them out so that they don't stay and fester.
Yeah, punch something, not somebody.
Well, yeah.
And in Pamsky's Place, I have a course on anger, and I teach on the different levels of anger and where you need to be careful, like at what level do you need to make sure you catch yourself? Because once you get to a certain point, you see red and you can't you hear temporary insanity. You
Mhm.
actually really do. That's what happens to you
Yes.
when you get so angry. And if you can do some things before you get to that point, you can actually reduce the damage that you can do whenever you're angry. So, if anger is something that you're dealing with, then come into Pamsky's Place and check it out, and you will learn there's lots of things in this course that will help you with your anger. So we also have seek support. And I know that we are really big about support. We were created for relationships. We need people to breathe life into us. We need people to say, you're doing a good job. We need people that when we're really struggling, we can go to them and them be there for us and us say, hey, this is what's going on. I need help. So we need people that we can trust. We need people that aren't fake with us, that they're real with us. We need people who aren't just going to coddle us, but tell us what we need to
Mm.
hear. We need those kinds of people in our life. So, to find a support group, to that's what I love about Pamski's Places. We've got a support group in there, but you need to find people, and I get it. If you are struggling, if you are your own worst enemy and you have spent a lifetime walling people off and you don't trust anybody, I know how hard that can be to reach out for help. But I'm going to say, reach out for help. And if you can't find someone, start praying for God to bring that person into your life because you you need that person. They can see things that you can't,
So
and
true.
they can say things that you can't.
That's so very true. And you do have to be cautious at who you do align with because not everybody has your best interest at heart. And some of them will try to tear you down. So you have to make sure that you have a community that understands and is supportive. And, like Pam already has her Pamski's Place, and I'm in the middle of developing a group thing to help women with anxiety because what better way to get through it than others that are supporting you, that have been there, that have experienced it, and can say, I've been through that. I know that. Like I've been
Mhm.
through it. I know it. But I want other people to be a part of a community where they feel safe because they're going through it and they need to surrounded by people that will say I'm there too. And it's the same with being a mom. You have your bad days, the kids take the diapers off and throw them at the wall, and and you're losing your mind, and it's great to have a community to lean on to say, oh, this kid just threw his diaper at the wall, and and just say, well, my kid did it too, but this is how I handled it, because sometimes you hear things and it might help. You might come up, they might have a better way of dealing with something than you even thought of. So when you can do that and lean on people, no matter what it is, in businesses, in motherhood, in being a father, no matter what, if you have other people to lean on that can give you ideas, and sometimes you don't have that clarity and they can provide it for you, that is the best way to get through any situation.
Yeah, that's so good. I can remember when I was in the midst of my struggle, my frustrations. I was just in a really deep, dark place, and I needed to get outside of myself, but I didn't trust anyone. And I remember that I decided, because things got bad enough, that
Mhm,
I decided to start going to this support group.
mhm.
And it was so refreshing to see that I in my mind, I thought I was the only one
Right.
that was dealing with what was going on inside my head. I did. I thought I was the only one. And when I got into the support group and I listened to these women, I began to realize, wait a minute, they have some of the same pain. They have some of the same fears, but maybe different experiences.
Mhm.
But it was so refreshing to see I'm not the only one. These women understand what I'm going through and what I'm feeling, and it was so refreshing for me that I stayed in that group for a couple years, because to have that kind of support is powerful, it is refreshing, and you begin to grow and begin to realize, oh, so this is how it's supposed to work. And then you begin to realize that you have things that you can share with other people that they need also. So it's a twofold thing. So make sure that you find your support group, your people who can surround you and cheer you on as you grow.
Yes.
Another one is reframe from negative thinking. Oh my goodness. I think that we could probably spend all day on this one.
Oh, yes.
Whew, I was so stuck in the negative thinking that I didn't realize how toxic it was until I hit that really low place, and I began to recognize that I needed help. And when I stepped out there and started reading books, I started going to a mentor who was helping me. That's when I really began to see how much my negative thinking was affecting me. and how much my behavior and my emotions followed what I was thinking. And so, as I began, because the biggest piece of this for me was that I needed to realize I had a choice. Up until this point, I didn't think I had a choice. I thought that I just had to go along with what my brain was saying because that's all I ever did. And when I realized I have a choice, I get to choose to think differently than what I was thinking. And when I started replacing the lies, acknowledging first, recognizing the negative thinking, and when I started replacing them with truth, that's when things really started to move for me. And I started rising up out of that pit because that negative thinking was like an anchor that kept me down and out. And so as I began to replace those negative thoughts with positive, more life breathing thoughts, it just got so much better for me and I could keep going and keep rising up. So Debbie, what do you got to say about negative thinking?
Negative thinking. Oh my goodness. It could put you into many dark places. And, like you touched on, as far as like the negative thinking, you have to change that mindset. And when you're in that negative thinking, it's hard to change that mindset because you've had those feelings and those discussions with yourself so many times. And I'm going to go back to the whole thing. The hardest person to face is yourself. So you have to get through it. You have to realize that it's not doing you any good. It's hurting you when you have the negative thinking, and you have to find ways to reframe it. You have to find ways to view yourself differently. You have to find ways to say, when you're getting those negative thoughts, say, that's not me. I'm not owning that. That's not me. I'm not owning that. And just change the perspective of how you are viewing yourself and viewing your negative thoughts. So turning it around is hard, but it can be done. And
It can, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I only look in the rear view mirror to see where I've come from, and I just keep focusing on the forward. And if you don't have that clear mindset and that stop having that negative self-talk, you're always going to be focused on what's behind, and that's gone. That's
Mm.
gone. So you need to look forward.
Here's the thing that I've recognized is that much of my negative thinking was coming from old recordings from other people.
People.
Somebody would say something to me that was negative or degrading or calling me names, whatever it was. And it was like I kept pushing the play button and it would just play over and over and over. And I kept making agreeances with them. I
Mhm.
kept saying, see, I really am stupid. See, I really can't do this. See, I really am fat and ugly. And it would play over and over and over. And what I had to learn to do is recognize what are actually my thoughts and what are somebody else's thoughts that I brought in as my own? And when am I going to push the pause and work on some of these things and then push erase?
Yes.
Because those recordings will play over and over and over. And I will tell you that a good portion of them aren't even your voice. There's somebody else's voice from your past. And this, yes, we don't camp out. I don't want you to set a tent up in your past, but there are times when we do need to visit to look at what are you listening to that isn't even your voice.
Yes.
So good, so
And
good.
some people will put what they're feeling about themselves on you, and that's not really who you are, but it makes
Mm-mm.
them feel better to make you feel the same way. So you have to be careful and know your truth.
Yes. The truth is, we are surrounded by people who are hurt, who have gone through some things in their past. They're wounded and they're acting out in their woundedness. And it actually causes wounds on us then. But we need to recognize that because if we're always taking what people say at face value and not looking at are they wounded? Did they say this out of being wounded? then we're always going to take what they say as truths. But the truth is that they've gone through some things themselves and they've not worked through it. And so they're reacting to things in their own life and it's being projected on us. So be careful that you're not the sponge and soaking all that in when it's really not you, it's what's going on with them. And you being able to separate that and be able to tell yourself, you know what? I don't know what's going on with this person right now, but what they're saying isn't true. This is not me. I'm not fat. I'm not ugly. I'm not no good. I'm not, I don't try to hurt people. Whatever it is that they're trying to say to you, separate it so
Yes.
that you can tell yourself the truth because the truth will set you free.
Yeah, and hurt people hurt people.
Mm, yep. So true. All right, let's try to get through the rest of these. We could like do this all day. I love this topic. We're going to come back and visit this topic again because I think it's really important for moms to have the tools that they need. Um, one of the things is being able to limit your social media. I don't think we need to say a whole lot on that
No.
because we know that we can scan, and next thing you know, a whole hour goes by and we're still on our devices or on our computer. And then we get frustrated with ourselves and start saying nasty things about ourselves. And we're negating some things that maybe we would really like to do, some of our passions and hobbies or reading or self care or whatever it is, and it's because we're on social media. So just limit yourself. Phones have a thing where you can actually time yourself and it can time you out so that you're not on social media. So use those tools. Another one is connect with other moms. I know for some moms, it is really hard to make friends. I get that. Um, you might be someone that doesn't like the small talk, or you might be someone that's just very introverted and doesn't like to get out there. You don't have to meet a bunch of moms. You really only need one other mom that is healthy, a healthy mom. I'm going to stress that. Make sure it is a healthy mom so that you can spend time, your children can play together, you get to have conversation. Be very careful that you don't compare yourself to whoever this is, because again, you're not them. But to have another mom, because you have a lot in common, you'll begin to realize that you probably have way more in common than what you know in the beginning.
Mhm.
And as you get to know this person, you begin to realize, wow, we have a lot in common. And it will be someone that you can talk to who gets you, who understands what you're going through.
Yes.
So there's different groups that I know it would be hard for you to go in the beginning, but push yourself, put past that fear so you can find that one mom that's going to be your friend. Moms, moms of preschoolers, there's lots of them around. Look for those. Church groups often have mom days where moms get together or play days. Some of them are just called play days. But make sure that you're getting out there so that you can meet some. Go to the library. Sometimes the library is the best place to meet another mom. So just be looking for that and make sure that you're opening yourself up to that. If you are shut off, it's going to be hard for people to get close enough or feel like you even want them to be your friend. So try to bring that wall down just a little bit for you to be approachable so that people know that you're actually wanting to be friends with somebody, but also be careful that you're not someone that has all the protections down and you are naive and you'll just take anybody because then you could be prey for someone who's looking. There is that healthy balance. And this is where, again, I would be praying that God helps you to find the right people that suit your personality to suit what you need. Debbie?
Yes, and it's so important, and I cannot stress this enough. what you're listening to, what you're watching, what you're scrolling through, what you're reading. Make sure that it's something that's positive and uplifting and not the doom and gloom that seems to be all around. And I know for myself, not watching the news has been a game changer for me. So I don't watch the news. And funny story, last year we were having the second hurricane that came through, and I don't watch the news. So I get an alert from the school, and it said, we'll keep you updated as to school closures. And I'm like, school closures for what? And then I went on and found out we were getting another hurricane, but I didn't know except for this text message from the school because I don't watch the news. So you have to be careful about what you're putting in your brain. And my kids laugh at me because I like Christmas in July on the Hallmark Channel, and they're like, "Why are you watching that goofy stuff?" I said, "Because it's cheerful, and yes, the story plot's the same all the time, pretty much, but at least it's cheerful." Like I don't want to watch, doom and gloom. I rather watch the goofy Hallmark movies.
Yeah, I have to say for my well-being, as especially as I was coming up out of my dark place, I needed things that were positive. I
Mhm.
definitely stayed like I had to become very aware of what those were though, because I didn't even recognize them in the beginning. I had to start identifying what brings me down. What am I watching? What am I reading? What am I listening to? Who am I around that brings me down? And once I could start acknowledging that, then I had to make the decision, okay, what am I going to do about it? Because just because you know that these things are around and that you're doing them, if you don't find ways to stop doing it and change things, you're always going to get the same result. And so once I recognized it, then I had to make the choice of what I was going to do. And I
Right,
eliminated the news because that definitely was bringing me down. Some of the books I was reading wasn't healthy for me. It would put me in a place of wanting things that I didn't need or shouldn't be. And so I had to change the people that I spent time with because they were negative and I was starting to be negative with them. And so I had to either limit my time with them or totally change my environment. And once I started to do that, now today, I still don't listen to the news because every time I do, I'm an encourager, and every time I listen to the news, it pulls me down and then I can't be who I was created to be. So make sure that you acknowledge what those things are and then take action to do something different so that you can have the change that you deserve to have.
yeah,
All right, we have 3 more. Well, actually 4. We're going to do the one really quick. Self-care. Definitely self-care. Here's the word I want you to hear in this is prioritize. Prioritize your self-care. That word is important. You need to make it important in your life. It can't be the last thing on your list. It needs to be higher up. So make sure that you put it higher up so that you actually do it. Celebrate achievements. Woo!
yeah.
This is a big one. Debbie and I are really big about make sure that you celebrate your wins. Make sure you're acknowledging how you're growing, how you're achieving. And it is not wrong to celebrate. I will say be careful how you celebrate because if you're someone that is overcoming an addiction, obviously you don't want to celebrate with that thing that you're overcoming. If you're someone who is trying to lose weight, I would not celebrate with a bunch of chocolate and goodies because you're just going to defeat what it is that you're doing. But you can find healthy ways to celebrate, and you're allowed to do it. Give yourself permission to celebrate your wins. Debbie, do you have something on this one?
When I have achieved my workout goals and stuff like that, I do celebrate with a little chocolate bar because that's just my little reward for myself. But it's all about the balance and not going over, not overindulging in it because you want it to be acknowledged, and it's just a little thing, but it is important to encourage ourselves, encourage others, but also encourage ourselves because again, the hardest person to do and to take care of is yourself. And it all comes from that feeling of guilt that is being well, self-care is selfish, and it's not. It's selfless. And once you can get that into your brain that it's not selfish, it's selfless, it does change everything.
Absolutely. Here's the thing, when we are in our healing process, we will often, and I see it in my clients all the time, they're over here and they know that this isn't healthy. And so when they recognize how unhealthy this is, guess what they do? They go way over on the other side of the spectrum.
Mhm.
And this isn't healthy either. This can be just as detrimental as this over here. So I always say, find the middle ground.
Yes.
Get your goal is to get to the middle ground because that's where balance is. And so if you are trying to lose weight and you want to celebrate yourself, just don't use a lot of chocolate. You can have a piece of chocolate, but don't overindulge. Don't do think because what we tend to do is the mindset again. The mind says, "Ooh, I exercised hard today, so I get to eat all these goodies." Well, no, then you just defeat
Right.
one of the reasons why you're exercising. So make sure that you are finding that middle ground, but don't be too frustrated if you find yourself here and then way over here because it is a lot of times a part of the process.
Yes. It's all
All
about
right.
process.
All about process. That's right. Not perfection. Which is leads us into the next one, accept imperfection. You are human and you need to accept yourself as a human being who is going to make mistakes. You do not have to be perfect, and your mistakes are just to tell you to go the other way. Learn from whatever it is that you did and go the other way. We will not grow without mistakes. So make sure that you're accepting the fact that you're human and you're going to make mistakes and you don't have to be perfect. Just learn from them and move on.
And that's why I say I'm perfectly imperfect.
I love that. I love that. Alrighty, and our last one is practice mindfulness. Engage in mindfulness techniques, whether it is um, changing your thoughts, making sure that you have truths with you so that you can replace the lies, or it's meditation, or it's scripture. A lot of times, scripture will help uplift you and change things for you in your mind. Being able, but you have to identify first what is it that is tripping you up, and then being able to make those changes so that you can be healthy.
Yeah, and mindfulness is important because once you have that self-awareness and that mindfulness, you will find the thing that works best for you, whether it be meditation, whether it be reading the Bible, whether it be going for a walk in nature and just connecting with the trees and the grass and the flowers. And once you're aware, you will find what will work for you and what will keep you grounded and fully in your positive mindset.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, what I think I would like to do, I would like us to do another segment on this. I
Yeah.
have 10 more things that we can do. And then I would also like to talk about the rewards,
Hmm.
some of the benefits of being able to work through your Mompostor syndrome,
Yes.
and what does that feel like?
Yeah.
So, we will do this again another time. Thank you for being here. If you're listening to the recording, we thank you for listening. We will make sure that we answer any questions that you have. Please leave comments. We'd love to hear your feedback too. You've got experience, you've got wisdom, and we would love to hear it. Until next time, we'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye bye.